Here we go. It is time for another sprint zone. This one's for 6:30. Didn't do a fancy splash screen because, well, I just didn't. In any case, it is a good day. Big group and lots of colorful kits here. I guess it's been a while for a lot of people, and we have new people showing up every week, which is cool. So, into the melee. Turning the corner, we can see James Stevens there in the viral kit, and I'd like to take this time to thank James for his telemetry. As I think this might be the first time we've ever had his. It's always nice people volunteer their stuff. In any case, it's time to get the party started, and the party must go. So I'm up front, wanting to keep people honest, and this is what I normally do. I'm feeling pretty good. Getting ready for Ned Gravel coming up in a week or so I need to at least stretch my legs a little bit and definitely get in my anaerobic work. So I'm up front. We got Tom kind of next to me, and he was kind of next to me, but he kind of was fading back. I wasn't certain, like he was keeping up a really good tempo, and I was keeping up a really good tempo. And I wasn't quite certain if he wanted to go to the front or whatever, but he definitely wasn't dropping back. And my goal at this point is I wanted to string this out. I didn't like the double line, but there's too many strong men back there to actually string it out. So it is what it is, but I keep pushing onward anyhow. Power's looking good, 30 seconds, 230, 240, and increasing instantaneous, 320 at this point. And this, of course, is causing a little bit of damage at the back, and this is goodness, because we don't really want a lot of hangers on or just people that are afraid of the pointy end of the stick, just hanging on there and feeling like good. Yeah, and I get it. It's a goal for some people, and we should make it a worthy goal and make it hard. Good shot of James here as Tom fades back as the kitchen was a little bit too hot, and he was not worthy of the heads of state. So now we got Scott Paglia of Corn Doggies and Viral Racing right behind me, and things are looking good. Christina in the blue, not wearing her team kit as I pull off as my job is done here for a little while. And I think I may have cooked myself a bit. Heart rate 163, not horribly high, but a lot for this early on because I'm going to need reserves. So you can see damage has been done. Everybody is strung out a little bit. Looking at James's power, throwing it down, 200 plus watts at the front. And Dean had a little bit of a gap behind Gwen, and I was like, come on, Dean, get up there. Because this is the kind of thing, like, Dean is super strong, but he gets, like, lazy, and he relies on his strength a lot versus savvy. And so the draft behind Dean, it's good, but it's not as good as the draft sitting behind a lot of people. And I look up, and what do I see? I see another gap that has opened up. Jonathan of the Rio squad, unable to hold the wheel of the Fastman, and now I have to exert an extreme amount of energy that I was not prepared to close this gap. Getting gapped off is not good, and maybe I should have been paying more attention, but I'm up here nevertheless, so it's good. And I make contact. Heart rate's still pretty good at this point, but I'm hurting. James has done his work. Very nice. Coming back and looking at his 5-minute power, 179. My 5-minute power, 161. So it's starting to creep up there. Everybody doing their turn at the front, and the heads of state are not shying away from the pointy end. A lot of them are champions. We got Scott Paglia of the Corn Doggies team, won his race a week ago or so in Louisville after a little bit of hiatus from a crash. We got Christina taking over, won her division in Steamboat like a week ago or so. So these are heavy hitters up here. We got Dan, always looking strong. Actually, we got two Dans here. I guess I should call one Daniel and the other one Dan. So I'll call the TFR Daniel, and Dan in the red Dan. So I've never ridden with Dan, at least maybe not in a while, maybe sore, but he's super strong, and Christina brought him along. No doubt maybe bringing along a domestique to help her in her efforts to get away in some of these little contests. Anyway, I am forced to go to the front. Well, not really forced, but out of honor. So you can see 400 plus watts to get my butt to the pointy end of the stick. And the effort by this little posse is definitely doing damage. Ryan coming through looking strong. James coming through strong at 300 plus watts. Christina looking strong. Scott Paglia looking strong there. Little bit of a gap there. Danny coming through, and you can see the wheel suckers. And it looks like got another Danny. So we got Danny Evans back here in the viral kit, letting the gap open up because he's clearly either not that strong today or afraid of the pointy end of the stick. But he's not one to put himself out there unless he needs to put himself out there. But at least someone from viral is representing, and maybe that's part of the plan. You know, have James do a lot of the work. Danny sits on and makes it in for the sprint. Gwen looking strong back there on Danny's wheel. Scott coming off the front end, and it may have been a little too hot once again in the kitchen for even his greatness. The heads of state, there are heads of state among heads of state here. In any case, Ryan coming up, and I'm not gassed at this point, but this is hard, and I'm fearing this little rise that's going to be coming up. I need to make it over this rise, otherwise it's like game over. 160, my heart rate, looking good there. 5-minute power 209. Looking at James's 5-minute power 215. So he's putting out a little more work than I did recently, but not too terribly that much more. And there's the attack by James. Going hard. 600. I think I saw 800 watts in there. And this 600 for like an extended period is going to be too much as I am caught on the back foot. And even likes of Ryan have been dispatched here. And not to spoil anything, but it's pretty much game over at this point. So I'm going to claw my way back. You can see my heart rate, 168, 169. Barely able to hang on here. So I had a little bit of reserve, but not enough to match the strength of James Stephen and the other heads of state. So we're looking at the heart rate. Look at James is up there, 166, pushing 300 plus watts there. Impressive. And you can see the organization up front, and they are just dangling in front. And I'm really not quite certain why Ryan wasn't able to hold the wheels of the heads of state there. He's clearly riding like super strong. And at some point, like I'm just sitting behind Ryan and Danny's sitting behind me. And I think maybe Gwen's still back there. And I'm like, I'd like to help you, dude, but I can't. I'm just gassed here. And you can see that we are actually bringing them back a little bit. Like if we were able to do a little bit of work, and maybe I say we, myself, or even Danny were able to go to the front here and give Ryan a little bit of a break, we might have been able to pull these people back if there were a little bit of shenanigans going on. And I suspect that there were, like, I'm not going, you go, which is good for us back there. And I'm certain they don't really fear us catching them. So it could have been okay for them to just like play around a little bit. But alas, they're starting to get organized again, and I think this second little grade up here, like, it doesn't look like much, but it is enough that if one needs to launch an attack and diminish the amount of benefit from those who are drafting, this is the thing to do. So James had the best salvo on the first one. That 800 watt little blast, watt bomb just dropped there. That was enough to definitely create a final separation and unhitch me from the train. Ryan looking strong here, and I think somewhere in here I'm like, okay, I gotta try to help him here, but he was putting out too much water, so I'm looking at 488 watts right here, you know, next to him. My 30-second power, 280. So it's like no joke, and you could see now that the heads of state, that the breakaway, that the selection has indeed been able to distance themselves from us. And it's interesting, right? So we're looking at like James's 5-minute power and mine. They're almost identical. Mine's at 216. James is at 218. So if I could have been there, if Ryan could have been there, I think we could have been there if we could have like matched those little punchy sections here. And so now I'm kind of sitting in, trying to catch my breath here. Heart rate down to 165, which is pretty much my threshold, or at least according to my Garmin watch. Never had any of that professional testing done, but I assume that the Garmin watch is good enough to tell me that. So I'm just basically on the rivet here. Ryan just cranking it out, like, and the only reason he's here is because he missed CTH. He was late to the party, but then maybe after this little melee, maybe he's glad that he missed like TTH, because, you know, this is only TFR, and if you're not able to be with the heads of state with TFR, you're certainly going to be dispatched at TTH. In any case, I do my little bit of a part, you know, 200 watts, 250 in there, just trying to give a break to the group back there. just pushing into the wind, and you can see my 5-minute power dropping to 194, whereas like James, as an example, up there 212 in with the heads of state, and they're just dangling in front of us, just like, here comes Danny to the front, and then Danny stands up. So I don't think this is meant to help us. This was meant as an attack to get up on his own, and I am going to note this. Danny's a wheel sucker, and he's not willing to help the group out. Yeah, I know, it's the sprint zone, and you can do whatever we want. But at this point, I'm like spent, and I just shut it down. There goes Ryan. I figure at this point, there's only so much I can do. Even now, instantaneous watts, 380, 30-second power, 290, 300, and still it's not enough. But clearly, and you see this in the tour, where groups are just not working well together, and Danny of the viral team, had no thought to helping out the group, only his own aspirations. In any case, this is what this looks like here. There's no need to see more of me there. Don't know who won that one. I think James had film. I wasn't able to get that in time, so maybe he'll put out a video. That might be interesting. And we move on. Okay. Down to sprint zone number 2. Everyone's back together, coming around. I'm tail gunning back here. I think James is behind me back there with Danny. Maybe there's some viral collusion going on. Well, I guess it's not collusion if in fact you're on the same team, but maybe chatting about what happened, what they want to do on the second sprint zone, if they want to try to make something happen. Who knows? But I think James was back a little bit. I think he was chasing, because we're looking at his heart rate at 139 versus mine. So he must have been back a ways and like just chasing for whatever reason. Everyone looking strong. We got Dan and Tom back there. Gwen in front of me looking strong. Hair blowing in the breeze. And I think for all the women out there, I think Josh Portner had a video on aerodynamic drag of hair. And it turns out that putting it in a little ponytail, aka like Christina has, could save up to 16 watts. And that was kind of an interesting video. So if the women watching this haven't seen that, check out that video on hair and aerodynamics, because I think it was the first time, as Josh said, that they had actually tested this in a wind tunnel. They had done the Lauren Frignon braid from the '84 Tour de France, but they had never done the ponytail for women or women's hairstyle. So they did a couple of them, and I think quite interesting. So everyone's trying to get organized here. Yeah, Scott pulling off the front, and it's a little bit of a headwind up here. So this is keeping the group together somewhat. Well, there's a little shot of me up in the corner. I don't really show the video too much, but in case people have forgotten what I look like, this is what I look like. This is what I look like when I'm doing the sausage. In any case, enough of that distraction. Back on it. So I'm on Christina's wheel. Looks like Ryan comes off and Ryan is out in the wind. Tom looking strong on Dan's wheel. And we got the viral teammates back there, Danny and James, as I start to move up as Ryan goes back. If I were Ryan, I wouldn't want to get too far back here, just because of the whole tactical thing. Rob Baum, the TFR kit, looking good, pulling off as the kitchen once again has gotten a bit too spicy. And it's a little bit of an echelon here, and it looks like Gwen and Christina have the last good slots in the echelon. And so I'm forced to kind of fend for myself a little bit, but I'm okay with that. Speed 27 miles per hour into the wind. I think it's like Dean Davis somewhere up there just cranking it out, or it's Jonathan and the Rio team. But I think maybe Dean, we'll find out. Hard to tell from way back here, but we will know in just a second. And it looks like maybe we're getting organized here. Lisa looking strong on, yes, that Dean's wheel. Looks like Jonathan up front. Scott of the Corn Doggies in the yellow beginning to take over. And this is where Christina's like, Dan, we sprint here. And I'm like, no, Dan, we don't sprint here. Don't need any extra help for Christina here, as she is strong enough on her own. Nice organization. And it looks like Scott looks over to say, Gwen, you coming through? And it's like she's a new rider here, but not a new rider when tactics coming. I don't even know if she knows this is the sprint zone. Maybe. But anyhow, looking strong up front. And here goes the move by James Stevens. up to the front. Oh, I believe he's coming up to help as he moves over. And of course, now there's no room at the end in the echelon, so I'm out in the wind, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just be a second echelon for some people, give them some room over here. And so we got maybe some people taking advantage of it, maybe not. We got Scott of the Corn Doggies nicely tucked in. Tom looking good. Daniel looking good. The other Dan looking good back there. And you can see some people are being dispatched here. James looking good. And James buries it. And Gwen unable to keep the pace, only to be matched by Christina. I'm still out in the wind. It looks like a lot of people now taking advantage of my generosity and some shelter. And here they go. The hill is here, and it's time to sprint. And there they go. James still at the front, leading from the front. Impressive. As I'm out in the wind. My 30-second power looks like in the 270s and dropping. Still in good position. Happy with what I'm doing here. There goes the other Danny. So I think this might be the ride with the most Dannys. Or Dans. So we got Danny, Dan, and Daniel. Yeah. And so I just shut it down here. I'm like, I went really hard. No sense in beating myself further. And just will cruise into the top. Once again, would have been good to have the James cam here. Maybe he'll comment about how that went. Everybody else craps up. And let's just kind of like fast forward here because no one needs to hear me ramble on about absolutely nothing. Of course, I rendered all of this. So at some point, I should just put out the full video. It would be like, I don't know, almost 40 minutes of people. So if you want to do a ride along. In any case, it is time to go, and we're going to move on to the last stage of this one. I don't know if I have much to say, but I do have something to say about the organization here. Maybe some yellow line violations, but the road's kind of closed, so we're going to give Christina a pass on that one. Since the road is closed, everyone gets a pass on that one. So if people are wondering why I'm not talking about the yellow line violations here, it's all good. Yeah, and this section of the road was like open to bikes more or less. So we're coming through. James lives in the neighborhood over here, so he has the skinny on everything. A little bit of separation here. As we get down to the last one, it looks like there was a group up the road here. People not wanting to do, work. Finally into the corner. Smooth pavement now as we're about to enter the final sprint zone on Ptarmigan, which is, well, probably the first time we've actually done the full sprint zone on Ptarmigan since all of this construction here, which is good. The short sprint zone when we, entered the midpoint, it was just like, it's going to be short. There's going to be really no selection. In any case, here we go. Time to catch my breath. Everyone gets a chance to catch their breath. Looking at my heart rate, 132. James is 143. Yep. You can see James must have been in the big group, done a lot of work. His 5-minute power is like 140 something. Mine only 90. And we make the corner, and I think it's pretty much clear. So here we go. Hand signals look good. Everyone's together. I think the rules of engagement, and the reason people don't hit it hard around the corner, because the rules of engagement state that you must wait till everyone's around the corner, because we don't want people fighting for position, because that just gets kind of ugly. People trying to take advantage of their position to gain advantage. And like I always say, it's better to ride people off your wheel than to use like shenanigans or little tricks to get them off. And when I say tricks, things like that, the cornering, drafting vehicles, which, come on, people. There's still a few people that are on certain rides, and we'll talk about them, that try to draft vehicles at time. And this is not safe, because you get some guy that like brake checks you, and next thing you know, he'll be like, oh, well, you should have been tailgating. And what he said is absolutely correct. If you wouldn't do that in your car, don't do it on a bike. In any case, here we go. Little bit of wind coming off of our left shoulder, but it's just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. I'm keeping everything in check here. Got a clear view here, partially for myself, partially for the camera. Bike lane is clear. Looks like Tom out there in the road in good position. Elisa looking strong here, and she's been doing a lot of really, really strong rides lately, for recovery. I'll give my 2 cents. I'd probably be doing more Zone 2 rides now, but if this is the only fast ride like in the week, this is good. Get that high end up there with no expectations. Looks like we got a real rider coming down. Maybe it's Jonathan fading back on the right-hand side. looking no doubt for more favorable position. And I think I'm pretty close to the rear here, and I'm happy. I'm happy there. Normally I've had aspirations, but I don't really like this sprint zone. It's kind of short, and there's no terrain features, aka hills or anything, that will allow any sort of attacks where the terrain can help you. And when you got big guys in the group, the guys that are able to throw down like a lot of watts, and I'm talking about like Dean Davis as an example, Scott Pollia, it is very difficult to stay on their wheels on a flat course. Nothing to soften them up at all. But I digress. In any case, everyone looking strong. Straight west, 20 miles an hour, slight wind. Looks like James is up front doing a little faster. He must be up the front because somehow he's doing 24 miles per hour. Unless I got the telemetry wrong at this point. I think it was okay. In any case, we're back here just kind of la-di-da. And here's the bridge. And this is the official start of the sprint zone due to the fact that the way it narrows the road, it's just too dangerous if cars are back there. And so now we're hotting it back up. 24 miles an hour. Life is good, 23. I'm in the back here, and I'm worried. I'm worried about getting gapped off at this point. There's no money on the line, and, you know, I'd like to be there, you know, to test my mettle, to be able to throw down some watts with everybody else. But sometimes gaps do open up, and it looks like we got a rider coming off there, and it looks like, oh, maybe we were just passing a rider. Yeah, that was like nobody with our group. And now the watt bombs are being dropped, and I am trying to stay in contention here. Looks like James pushing over 600 watts there, so he must be off the front doing some serious damage at 33 miles an hour. Looks like Jonathan and the Rio team can't hold the pace. Dean, it looks like, can't hold the pace either, and I am gapped off. And this is what I'm worried. I'm kind of surprised that these two were not able to match those accelerations. But Dean was out for a while, and so maybe that's okay. So I'm going to try to claw myself back here. But when those guys are going and chasing, and I'm trying to chase, it's like, as the Borg would say, resistance is futile. So yeah, I could see James doing 29, 28 miles an hour. I'm doing 27. Yeah, not going to catch them. And so going to just shut this one down, and it is game over. Maybe next week I'll have to like make a more concerted effort to get the footage from James. But I can say a good time was had by all. Looking at our 5-minute powers, like James at 159, 146, 132nd power at 302. Oh, James is only 278, so everybody's just shut it down. In any case, that was fun. Enjoyed it. Even now, I'm still doing like 30 miles an hour at 300 some watts. Yeah, so it was a hard day. It was a hard day. You could see the little light blue spike in the graph of James up there, where you can see how much higher it was than my little spike. Serious watts being thrown down for a good period of time. So that's it. Fast forward to the end here. Peace out, everybody. Until next week.